There was no meeting scheduled on the calendar. No warning. Just a sudden ping from my inbox. 10 a.m., boardroom, mandatory. No subject line. No explanation. I sat still at my desk for a moment, my hands hovering over the keyboard. I had been with the company for 10 years. 10. Not a single sick day, not a single late submission. I built that department from nothing when the previous CFO walked out with half the files and all the passwords. I stayed when everyone else jumped ship. I cleaned up the mess, automated their broken systems, and got the company back in the black alone. And now this. I stood, adjusted my blazer, and walked to the boardroom. My heels echoed down the quiet hallway, each step slower than the last. When I opened the door, every face turned to look at me. But it wasn't welcoming. No one smiled. The new CEO, Carter Dalton, sat at the head of the table, sleeves rolled up like some Silicon Valley visionary. Except he didn't build anything. He inherited this place last quarter, and ever since, things had started to feel different. "Emma," he said with that slick voice of his. "Come in. Take a seat." I sat, but I didn't relax. I knew that tone. I'd heard it before, years ago when I was fresh out of college and too naive to see a layoff coming. But this time, I wasn't some junior associate. I was the only person running finance here. I had every file, every password, every audit, every deal. He steepled his fingers. "We've decided to bring in someone new to head up accounting. Someone with fresh ideas, a leaner salary. The board's looking at new directions." I blinked once. "You mean I'm being replaced?" He smiled as if I was the one being emotional. "You're being given the chance to train your successor. Think of it as a smooth transition." A transition. After 10 years. "And why now?" I asked, keeping my tone even, calm. Too calm. Carter didn't even flinch. "Fresh minds are cheaper," he said, and chuckled like it was clever. That was the moment something inside me clicked. Not with anger. With clarity. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small silver flash drive, and slid it across the table to him. "What's this?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. "My 2 weeks' notice. Along with every report, system log, and historical audit data for the last 10 years. Fully sorted, time-stamped, and secured. The password is in the email I just sent you." His expression darkened, but he still tried to keep the smirk. "Emma, I think you're overreacting." "No," I interrupted. "I'm reacting. Calmly, professionally, and with dignity. Just like I've done every day for the last decade." I stood up, and for a moment, just a second, the room went dead silent. No one moved. No one breathed. I reached the door, but paused. "One more thing," I added over my shoulder. "I included my exit letter in that email too. You might want to read it before the next shareholder call." And then I walked out. What Carter didn't know was that email was already going viral. And what was in it? Not rage. Not slander. Just the truth. Cold, factual, undeniable truth about unethical downsizing, misused funds, and how one woman kept this company afloat while everyone else got bonuses for her work. But what I didn't expect was who forwarded it to the media. And that was just the beginning. I didn't cry. Not in the elevator. Not in the parking lot. Not even when I sat in my car and stared blankly at the steering wheel. But I did feel something. Not anger. Not yet. It was release. The kind that feels like a breath you didn't know you were holding for a decade. I had no plan. No job lined up. No safety net. I just had the truth. And I'd sent it out into the world. By the time I got home, still in my blazer, still running on pure nerve, my phone was already buzzing nonstop. Emails. Messages. Missed calls. But one email stood out. Subject: "What the hell, Emma?" It was from Derek Tran, the company's legal consultant. We had worked side by side for years. He was smart, quiet, always professional. Never one to raise his voice. Body. "Did you seriously send that to everyone?" "That went out to shareholders, partners, clients. The board is in chaos. Carter's losing it. HR is trying to spin it, but..." "Emma, I'm just saying, Brace yourself. I reread it 3 times. My heart didn't race. It didn't need to. Because it wasn't a rant. It wasn't full of hate. It was full of facts. Every time Carter tried to take credit for a financial turnaround, it had been my sleepless nights doing the real work. Every inflated budget projection, I had corrected it. Every time a department avoided layoffs, it was because I found an alternate solution. But they never credited me. I was always Emma from accounting. That email laid it bare. I didn't even have to exaggerate. And maybe that's what made it powerful. I closed my laptop and set it on the table. My apartment was small, too small for a woman who held the weight of a multi-million-dollar company's finances every quarter. The dishes in the sink still weren't done. I hadn't eaten. I didn't feel hungry. But I did feel something else now. Clarity. The next morning, my email had over 700 replies. One was from Maya Geller, CFO of a direct competitor. Her message was short. Impressive. Coffee. 2 words. And yet they said more than 1,000 apologies from Carter Dalton ever could. I met Maya at a cafe downtown. She was younger than I expected, early 40s maybe, with a firm handshake and eyes that missed nothing. I read your email 5 times, she said, skipping small talk. You are the entire backbone of that place. I shrugged. They didn't see it that way. They're blind. Or arrogant. Or both. She sipped her espresso and leaned forward. I'm not offering you a job. I raised an eyebrow. She smirked. I'm offering you a partnership. I've seen your reports. You think like a strategist, not a staffer. We need that. I need that. I blinked. You want me on your executive team? I want you beside me. And I want to build something better than where you came from. You in. For a moment, I just stared at her. And then I smiled. Meanwhile, back in that familiar boardroom I left behind, Carter paced in front of the glass walls while the board members whispered and murmured among themselves. The company's stock had dropped 6% overnight. One of the major investors publicly questioned his credibility. And someone had leaked internal documents showing that his cost-cutting strategy was bleeding talent faster than money. He slammed a hand on the table. Why hasn't anyone shut that email down? Derek, the legal consultant, looked up calmly. Because nothing in it is false. And Emma didn't violate any agreements. She just told the truth. Carter's jaw flexed. She's blacklisting me. That's what this is. Derek shook his head. No, Carter. You did that to yourself. But I wasn't thinking about Carter anymore. I was thinking about Maya's offer and something bigger. Something mine. All those years I kept the company alive. What if I built one that never needed rescuing? What if, instead of chasing a seat at the table, I built the damn table? Because the truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. 3 weeks. That's all it took. 3 weeks from walking out of that glass tomb of a boardroom to standing inside the stripped-down, half-renovated space that would become the headquarters of something new. Maya wasn't just talking, she delivered. We called it Lumen because it meant to shine in the old languages and because for once, I wasn't going to work in the shadows. No more dim corner offices. No more being the silent backbone behind someone else's promotion. This time, the light would land where it was earned. I didn't even notice the moment I stopped waking up with anxiety. I'd spent a decade living with that invisible weight on my chest every morning, the pressure to prove I mattered in a place that never acknowledged me. But here, I walked into our new office in sneakers, tied my hair into a ponytail, and rolled up my sleeves because I wanted to. Not because I had to justify my worth. Maya and I split everything 50-50ths. Decisions, hires, investments. She handled external growth. I rebuilt the core systems. And together, we created a culture that valued people who did the work, not just the ones who took the credit. By the end of the first month, we had 10 clients. Some were startups. Others were old partners who quietly reached out after reading my email. They said the same thing. We want to work with people who tell the truth. But with growth came whispers. That email hadn't just gone viral. It had pierced the industry. Executives forwarded it in secret. Assistants printed it and pinned it to their corkboards. It was passed around like an unofficial manifesto of quiet professionals everywhere who had been overlooked, underpaid, and replaced in the name of fresh minds. And Carter? He was spiraling. Carter's smile had disappeared. The junior staff whispered in hallways. People no longer volunteered in meetings. Clients were pulling contracts, one after another, and no one could seem to trace where they were going. Until someone did. It was a woman named Jada, the new girl Carter had hired to replace me. She was sharp. I always noticed that about her even when she interned in a department no one cared about. She sat across from Carter during a tense Tuesday morning briefing. His voice was tight, strained. His suit, once sharp, was creased. "We've lost 3 more accounts," he snapped. "Does anyone know what the hell is happening?" Jada cleared her throat and set her notepad down. "They're going to Lumen," she said plainly. Carter blinked. "To where?" "To Lumen, Emma and Maya's new firm." He looked like he'd been slapped. Jada didn't flinch. "I checked the filings. Emma co-founded it. And they've taken over half the audit clients you lost last quarter." He opened his mouth, but she cut in gently, almost kindly. "I read the email too. The original one. Not just the version floating online. I think most of us have." He stood, jaw twitching. "You're either with me or against me," he hissed. Jada stood too, calmly gathering her things. "Or maybe I'm just not with someone who builds empires by stepping on everyone who built it for him." She left her badge on the table and walked out. Back at Lumen, we had our own fires to manage. Growth was great, but overwhelming. Hiring, infrastructure, cash flow, late nights, early mornings. Maya and I were running at full tilt. But then one evening changed everything. We were sitting in the dim break room, just a kettle boiling between us, when she looked up and said, "You've changed." I laughed. "Wrinklier?" "No," she said. "You're lighter. Stronger. You used to walk like you were carrying 10 years on your shoulders. Now." I paused. "Now. You walk like you own the world." I looked out the window at the skyline. The city lights glittered. "I don't need to own the world," I said. "Just the truth. And maybe my place in it." She raised her cup. "To your place in it." I raised mine too. "To never training your replacement again." The next morning, a courier arrived with a thick envelope. No name, just a logo. Inside, a formal letter of settlement, along with a personal handwritten note from Carter. "I was wrong. I see that now. I hope someday I'll be able to lead the way you did, quietly and with strength. You didn't need to destroy me to teach me. You just needed to walk away. And I've never felt silence so loud." 6 months passed. Lumen wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. We outgrew the small office. We moved into a repurposed brick and glass building downtown. It had history, character, flaws just like us. And just like us, it stood tall anyway. Emma Walker, former invisible accountant, was now a name being whispered in executive suites. But I didn't care about the buzz. I cared about how it felt waking up every morning without dreading the day. I cared about the team we built, young analysts who came early, stayed late, and left feeling seen. I cared that every person we hired knew what it meant to be valued. And deep down, I thought that was it. That this was where the story ended. Until the call came. It was a Thursday afternoon. Rain blurred the windows. I was reviewing a pitch deck when Maya knocked twice and poked her head in. "You have a visitor," she said, her voice unreadable. "Who?" She stepped aside. And there he was. Carter Dalton. He didn't look like the man I remembered. The sharp suits had been replaced with something simpler. He looked tired, but not broken. Weathered. Like a man who'd stared down his mistakes and actually counted them. He stood in the doorway like a student unsure if they were welcome in the classroom. "I won't take more than 5 minutes," he said. I nodded once. "Come in." He sat across from me, didn't meet my eyes at first. "I wanted to say thank you," he began. That caught me off guard. "For what?" I asked, not unkindly. "For not burning the place down," he said, finally looking up. "You could've. You had every reason. And you didn't. You just told the truth. And left. I didn't reply. I let the silence settle. I didn't see it then, he continued. How much you were holding up. I thought I was innovating, restructuring, but I was just cutting corners. He swallowed hard. I lost the board. They voted me out 2 months ago. And honestly, they should have. But I didn't come here for sympathy. Why are you here, Carter? He reached into his jacket and slid an envelope across the desk. Inside was a simple offer, an invitation to consult for a nonprofit finance reform group. Not glamorous, not lucrative, but meaningful, real. They asked me who I knew who could help them build ethical frameworks. I told them I knew someone who built a company out of ethics when no one else would. I stared at the envelope for a long moment. You want me to take this on? No, he said. I want you to say no. And no, you have every right to. I just wanted to say that everything you've done, it changed more than just you. He stood. And if you ever want to build something bigger, I hope I can earn a seat at that table. Not to lead it, just to learn from it. He left quietly. And for the first time since I walked out of that boardroom months ago, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole. That night, I sat alone in my apartment with the city lights flickering outside and the invitation letter in my lap. And it hit me. Revenge hadn't changed me. Growth had. I didn't win by making Carter fall. I won by standing and building and showing every silent woman in a forgotten office corner that yes, you matter. The next morning, I walked into the office early. The sun wasn't up yet, but one by one, my team started to arrive. Young, driven, full of ideas. They didn't need to see the past. They needed to see a future. And I was going to show them one. Not as a replacement, not as a boss, but as a builder. A woman who once handed over a flash drive and walked out not in anger, but toward something better. 3 years later, the front doors now bore a name that once only existed in a silent corner of someone else's company. And underneath that name, etched in the clean, clear glass, were smaller letters in silver. Ethics. Impact. People first. It wasn't just branding. It was our compass. Inside, the office buzzed. Not with the stiff silence of old corporations, but with movement. Laughter. Meetings that didn't feel like wars. Colleagues who lifted each other instead of stepping over one another. And leadership that didn't pretend to be perfect, but listened, adapted, and grew. That morning, I arrived early. As usual. But today wasn't usual. Today, I was speaking at a major summit, a global panel on ethical leadership in finance. And today, for the first time, I would be stepping onto a stage not as Emma from accounting, not as the woman who sent the viral email, but as Emma Walker, builder, leader, founder. As I walked toward the car, Maya met me at the front with a coffee in hand. She smirked. Nervous? I took the cup and laughed. You know I hate public speaking. She gave me that look. And yet the world won't stop listening to you. The conference hall was massive, rows and rows of people, cameras, press. But when I stepped on that stage, everything quieted. It always amazed me how much power stillness could hold. I took a breath, looked out at the sea of faces, and I began. I was once asked to train my replacement after 10 years of service. I said, voice calm but firm, because fresh minds are cheaper. And I did walk away, but not because I was weak. I walked away because I realized something. I'd been building someone else's dream while mine waited in silence. There were murmurs, nods, a stillness only truth can create. I never wanted revenge, I continued. I wanted respect. But when it wasn't given, I built a place where it was earned and returned. Where people didn't have to claw for recognition, they just had to show up and give their best. I paused. And that's the future we're building. One where we don't replace people like they're outdated tech. One where we remember that behind every spreadsheet is a human being who stayed late, who skipped lunch, who carried more than just numbers. Applause started quietly, then grew. And I saw them, scattered through the crowd, young women in modest suits, clutching notepads. Middle-aged workers with weary eyes and hopeful smiles. Executives who leaned forward, seeing leadership they'd never been taught to value. I ended with a simple truth. You don't have to burn bridges to build something better. Sometimes you just walk away and let your work speak louder than your silence ever could. After the talk, people rushed to speak to me, to shake my hand, but one stood out. A young woman, maybe 22, nervous, twisting the strap of her bag. She said, "They made me train my replacement last week." I didn't say anything. I just smiled. But when I read your story, I didn't feel alone anymore. I reached out and touched her arm gently. You're not. And your story's not over. Not even close. Her eyes filled with tears. I want to build something too. You will? I said. And when you do, call me. We'll help. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. Later that night, I returned to the office. It was empty, peaceful. I walked to the glass door again, looked at the name, Emma Walker, and then I saw my reflection. Not tired, not scared, not invisible, whole. 10 years in the dark, one email, and a journey that became more than just survival. It became legacy, because I didn't just rewrite my role. I rewrote the rules.